The conference room screen went black at exactly 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I watched 3 years of work disappear in front of 12 investors who'd flown in from New York specifically to see our platform demo. The silence lasted maybe 5 seconds. Then Jennifer, our CTO, refreshed the page. Nothing. She tried again. The loading icon spun endlessly against white emptiness where our trading dashboard should have been. "Marcus," she said quietly, not looking at me. "Just my name. That was all." I was already pulling out my laptop, fingers moving before my brain fully processed what was happening. Around the table, the investors shifted in their seats, that particular kind of restless movement that meant money reconsidering itself. One of them, a silver-haired woman in a navy suit, tilted her head at her associate and whispered something I couldn't hear but could definitely interpret. "We're experiencing a minor technical issue," Jennifer said, her voice carrying that carefully controlled calm that executives perfect right before they lose their jobs. "Marcus leads our engineering team. He'll have this resolved in just a moment." I barely heard her. My terminal was already open, commands flying as I checked server status, database connections, API responses. Everything showed green, which made no sense, because our entire platform was clearly down. "How minor is minor?" the silver-haired investor asked. Nobody answered her. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. "I think I know what happened. The memory leak I flagged yesterday." I didn't finish reading it, couldn't afford the distraction. Besides, Rebecca was QA, not engineering. She tested features after we built them, clicked buttons in different orders, filed bug reports about edge cases that affected maybe 0.01% of users. Important work, sure, but this was a catastrophic system failure. This needed actual engineering. 3 minutes, I said aloud, more to myself than anyone else. Jennifer was talking now, something about market volatility algorithms and real-time data processing, buying me time with technical jargon that sounded impressive to people who didn't know the difference between Python and JavaScript. I'd hired her specifically because she could do this, translate engineering into investor speak, turn our messy reality into clean PowerPoint slides. My phone buzzed again. Rebecca, calling this time. I sent it to voicemail. The problem had to be in the new deployment. We'd pushed an update at 6 a.m., tweaking the transaction processing module to handle higher volumes. I'd reviewed that code myself, spent 2 hours going through every line with Dev and Priya before approving it. The testing suite had passed. Integration tests, green across the board. "Marcus," Jennifer's voice had an edge now. "I'm on it." I started rolling back the deployment, fingers typing commands I'd executed 100 times. The investors were murmuring to each other now, not even pretending to pay attention to Jennifer's increasingly strained explanations about our robust infrastructure and multiple redundancy layers. The rollback completed. I refreshed the dashboard. Still nothing. My chest tightened. The rollback should have worked. That was the entire point of version control, of deployment pipelines, of every safety measure we'd built into our system. You break something, you roll it back. Crisis averted. Except it wasn't averting. "Perhaps we should reschedule," the silver-haired woman said. It wasn't a question. "Just need another minute," I said, hearing the desperation creeping into my voice and hating myself for it. My phone lit up with another text from Rebecca. "It's not the deployment. It's the background process I warned about. Check server memory usage." I felt a spike of irritation. She'd sent me a bug report yesterday. I remembered now. Something about memory consumption during sustained high-load scenarios. I'd skimmed it, flagged it as low priority. We had the investor demo to prep for, new features to finish, actual critical issues to address. A theoretical memory problem that only appeared in her stress tests didn't make the cut. But I checked anyway, if only to rule it out. The command came back with numbers that made my stomach drop. Our server memory was at 97% capacity. The application had been slowly consuming RAM for the past 18 hours, so gradually that none of our monitoring alerts had triggered. "Son of a bitch," I whispered. "What?" Jennifer asked, abandoning her investor pitch entirely now. I pulled up Rebecca's bug report from yesterday. The subject line read, "Critical. Memory leak in user session management. Potential system crash under sustained load." I'd marked it as medium priority and moved on. The timestamp on the crash was 2:47 p.m. According to Rebecca's report, she'd calculated that with our current user load, we'd hit critical memory capacity sometime between 2:30 and 3:00 p.m. on Tuesday, today, if the issue wasn't addressed. She'd been off by 13 minutes. "We need to restart the servers," I said. "Full system restart. Clear the memory. It'll be back up in 5 minutes." 5 minutes. The silver-haired investor was already standing, collecting her papers. "We have a 4 p.m. flight to catch. This was supposed to be a formality." Jennifer looked at me, and I saw something in her expression I'd never seen before. Not anger. Something worse. Disappointment. The kind that comes when someone you trusted proves they weren't worth the faith you placed in them. "We'll send you a recorded demo," she said to the investors, along with our updated projections and technical documentation. They were already leaving. Handshakes all around, professional smiles that didn't reach anyone's eyes. Promises to stay in touch that everyone understood meant the opposite. When the conference room door finally clicked shut, Jennifer turned to me. "Restart the servers," she said. "Then come to my office." I did. The platform came back online at 3:04 p.m., 17 minutes of downtime that might as well have been 17 years. Our status page showed 347 active users who'd been forcibly logged out, mid-transaction. Customer support was already fielding angry calls. I walked to Jennifer's office like a man headed to his own execution. She was standing at her window, looking out over Austin's downtown skyline. The late afternoon sun turned the glass towers copper and gold. Beautiful. In that way, expensive mistakes always are. "Rebecca called me," Jennifer said, without turning around. "Twice, while you were in the conference room fixing things. She said she'd found the problem, knew how to solve it, begged me to let her help." The words hit me like physical blows. "I told her you had it under control," Jennifer continued. "That you were our lead engineer, that this was your domain." You know what she said? I didn't answer. She said, "I know Marcus doesn't think I understand code, but I wrote a patch last night just in case. It's ready to deploy." Jennifer finally turned to look at me. She wrote a patch for a bug she identified 24 hours ago. "A bug you ignored." "I didn't ignore it," I started. "I triaged it based on what? The fact that it came from QA instead of another engineer." Her voice wasn't raised. That made it worse. "Based on the fact that Rebecca doesn't have a computer science degree from Stanford like you do? That she came up through technical support instead of a coding boot camp?" The accusations stung because they were true, or true enough that I couldn't completely deny them. "I made a judgment call," I said. "We had limited time, multiple priorities." "You made an assumption," Jennifer interrupted. "You assumed that because Rebecca's title says quality assurance, she couldn't possibly understand the code base as well as you do, even though she's been here longer than any of us, even though she's caught more critical bugs in the last 6 months than our entire engineering team combined." I wanted to argue, wanted to explain that engineering and QA were different disciplines, that my decision had been based on resource allocation and risk assessment, not bias. But the conference room was still empty. The investors were still gone. The platform had still crashed during the most important demo of our company's existence. "I want you to go home," Jennifer said. "Take tomorrow off. Think about whether you're capable of leading this team, because right now, I'm not sure you are." I left without another word. My apartment in East Austin felt too quiet that evening. I'd moved there 2 years ago, right after we secured Series A funding, a renovated warehouse conversion with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows that cost more per month than my first job had paid in salary. At the time, it had felt like proof that I'd made it, that all the late nights and weekend coding sessions and sacrificed relationships had been worth something. Now it just felt empty. I opened my laptop, intending to review code or check system metrics or do any of the 100 things I normally did when I wasn't at the office. Instead, I found myself pulling up Rebecca's bug report from yesterday. She'd attached detailed documentation, memory profiling data, logs showing exactly how the leak propagated, a step-by-step reproduction guide, and at the bottom, a proposed solution with implementation notes and estimated deployment time, approximately 2 to 3 hours for full fix and testing. The report had come through at 4:37 p.m. yesterday. I'd read maybe the first 2 paragraphs before deciding it could wait. My phone rang, my mother calling from Sacramento like she did every Tuesday evening. I almost didn't answer, but the alternative was sitting alone with my thoughts, and that seemed worse. "Hey, Mom." "Marcus, how was your day, honey?" I laughed. Couldn't help it. Spectacularly bad, actually. "Oh no." "What happened?" I told her, leaving out the technical details she wouldn't understand, focusing on the broader strokes, the crashed demo, the missed warning, my conversation with Jennifer. "Well," she said when I finished, "sounds like you messed up." "Thanks, Mom. Very comforting." "I'm not trying to comfort you. You called me, not a therapist." She paused, and I heard her refrigerator open and close in the background. "This woman who found the bug, Rebecca, you said she's been there longer than you." 3 years longer. She was employee number 4, and she found a problem you missed." "I didn't miss it. I deprioritized it." Sounds like the same thing to me. My mother had this way of cutting through bullshit that had been devastating when I was a teenager and remained inconvenient now. "Why did you think she was wrong?" "I didn't think she was wrong. I just thought—" I stopped. Thought about what I'd actually thought when I saw that bug report. I guess I figured if it was really critical, one of the senior engineers would have caught it. But she caught it. She's QA. It's literally her job to catch things. And is it your job to ignore her when she does? I didn't have a good answer for that. We talked for another 20 minutes about safer topics, her book club, my sister's new job in Seattle, whether I was eating enough vegetables. When we hung up, the apartment felt even quieter than before. I looked at Rebecca's bug report again, really looked at it this time. The code she'd identified was part of our session management system, something I'd written myself about 8 months ago. It worked fine under normal conditions, but she'd discovered that during sustained high-load periods, the cleanup function wasn't properly releasing memory. Each user session left behind a tiny fragment of orphaned data, maybe a few kilobytes, that accumulated over time. Individually, meaningless. Collectively, over the course of 18 hours with hundreds of concurrent users, enough to crash the entire system. It was elegant detective work, actually. She'd had to trace through multiple interconnected systems, set up specific testing scenarios, monitor memory allocation patterns over extended periods. The kind of deep technical analysis that required serious programming knowledge. At the bottom of her report, I noticed something I'd missed before, a link to a GitHub branch. Proposed fix with unit tests. The description read. I clicked through. She'd not only identified the problem and written a fix, she'd refactored the entire session management module to make it more efficient, added comprehensive test coverage, and documented everything with detailed comments explaining her reasoning. The code was good, really good, better than what I'd originally written. I sat back, feeling something uncomfortable settling in my chest. Not quite guilt, I wasn't ready for that yet, but something adjacent to it. Recognition, maybe, of a truth I'd been avoiding. My phone buzzed. A text from Dev, one of our junior engineers. "Yo, just heard what happened. That's brutal, man. You need anything?" I typed out a response, deleted it, tried again. "I'm good. Thanks, though." Another buzz, this time from Priya. "Customer support is getting hammered. Over 200 tickets about the outage. Thought you should know." 200 tickets, 200 people whose work had been interrupted, whose data might have been lost, whose trust in our platform had taken a hit. All because I'd been too proud or too stupid or too something to take Rebecca seriously. I opened my laptop and started going through our codebase, looking for Rebecca's fingerprints. Pull requests, code reviews, bug fixes. It took me about 30 minutes to realize she'd been quietly improving our system for months. A performance optimization in the authentication module, a security fix in the data export feature, a complete rewrite of our error logging system that made debugging infinitely easier. All merged with minimal fanfare, often with commits late at night or on weekends. And I'd barely noticed. When I thought about Rebecca at all, I thought about her as the QA person who filed bug reports, not as an engineer who understood our platform as well as I did, maybe better in some ways. I found myself composing an email to her around midnight, wrote 3 different versions, deleted them all. Nothing I wrote captured what I needed to say, and everything sounded either defensive or patronizing or both. Finally, I settled on something simple. "Rebecca, I should have listened to you. I'm sorry. Can we talk tomorrow?" "Marcus." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The response came back in less than a minute, even though it was past midnight. "I'm off tomorrow. Thursday works." Professional, curt, everything I deserved. I didn't sleep well. Kept replaying the conference room disaster, Jennifer's disappointed face, the silver-haired investor gathering her papers and walking out. Kept thinking about Rebecca sitting at her desk, watching me ignore her warnings, knowing exactly what was about to happen. When I finally drifted off around 3 a.m., I dreamed about code scrolling endlessly down a screen, bugs multiplying faster than I could fix them, Rebecca standing in the corner, shaking her head. I woke up Wednesday morning, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Jennifer had told me to take the day off, but staying home meant being alone with my thoughts, and that seemed unbearable. So I went into the office anyway, arriving around 10 to find the space unusually subdued. Priya looked up from her desk when I walked in, surprise flickering across her face. "Thought you were taking a personal day." "Change of plans." She nodded, diplomatically not asking why. "We got the platform stable overnight. Rebecca stayed late, implemented her fix properly, ran it through full regression testing. Everything's running smooth now." Of course she did. Of course Rebecca had stayed late to clean up the mess my negligence created. "Where is she?" "She took today off, said she was using vacation time." I spent the day feeling like a ghost in my own office. People were polite but distant, conversations dying when I approached. News traveled fast in a 20-person startup. Everyone knew what had happened, knew I'd screwed up, knew Rebecca had saved us. Jennifer's door stayed closed all morning. When she finally emerged around 2 p.m., she gave me a single look, unreadable and sharp, then walked past to the kitchen without saying a word. I left early. Couldn't stand the atmosphere. Drove around Austin for a while, no destination in mind, just movement. Ended up at Zilker Park, watching people fly kites and play volleyball and live their uncomplicated Wednesday afternoons. My phone rang. Unknown number. "This is Marcus." "Marcus, hi. This is Dana Weatherly. We met yesterday, briefly, before your platform demonstration." The silver-haired investor. My stomach dropped. "Ms. Weatherly, I'm sorry about..." I'm not calling about apologies, she interrupted. I'm calling because I did some research last night, spoke to some people, made some inquiries. I wanted to understand what actually happened. I waited, every muscle tense. Your QA engineer, she continued, Rebecca Chen. Before she joined your company, she was a senior software engineer at Oracle. Worked on database optimization for 8 years, left to pursue a more flexible role after her daughter was born. I felt like I'd been punched. Did you know that? Dana asked. No, I managed. Perhaps you should have. Her tone wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. I built my career on identifying talent, Marcus, and I've learned that the most dangerous assumption in business is thinking someone's current title reflects their complete capabilities. Rebecca Chen is worth more than your entire engineering team combined, and you treated her like an administrative assistant. I know I'm not investing, she cut me off. Not right now, but not because of the technical failure. Technical problems happen. I'm not investing because your leadership revealed a fundamental weakness in judgment. You had someone brilliant right in front of you, and you couldn't see her. That concerns me more than any bug ever could. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my car in the Zilker Park parking lot for another hour, watching the sun sink toward the hills west of Austin, painting the sky in colors I normally wouldn't notice. Dana Weatherly was right about all of it. Thursday morning, I arrived at the office at 7:30 a.m., hoping to catch Rebecca before the day fully started. Her desk was in the corner near the windows, surrounded by 3 monitors and a collection of coffee mugs that reflected the early light. She wasn't there. I waited, pretending to work on my laptop, but mostly just refreshing my email and watching the elevator doors. She finally walked in at 8:15, wearing jeans and an MIT hoodie I'd never seen before. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she carried a thermos of coffee that suggested she'd anticipated a long day. When she saw me sitting at her desk, something flickered across her face. Not quite annoyance, not quite resignation, some complicated emotion I couldn't name. "Marcus," she said evenly. "I wanted to talk," I said, standing up. "If you have a minute. I have a meeting at 9. This won't take long." She set down her thermos, crossed her arms. The posture of someone who'd heard too many inadequate apologies before and had learned not to expect better. "I read your bug report," I started. "Really read it, not just skimmed it, and I looked at the fix you implemented. It's excellent work, better than what I originally wrote." "Okay." "And I realized I've been doing this for months, dismissing your input, treating your findings as less important than issues raised by the engineering team. Not because your work wasn't good, but because—" the word stuck. "Because I made assumptions about what you were capable of based on your title." Rebecca's expression didn't change. "Anything else?" The coolness in her voice stung more than anger would have. "I'm sorry," I said, "for all of it, for ignoring your warning, for costing us the investment demo, for treating you like you didn't understand the system you've been maintaining longer than I've even worked here." She was quiet for a moment, studying my face like she was trying to determine if I actually meant it. "Do you know why I took the QA role?" she finally asked. I shook my head. "When I interviewed 3 years ago, I wanted to be a senior engineer. I had the experience, the credentials, but Jennifer and the board decided they needed someone in QA more urgently. They said it would be temporary, that I'd move to engineering once we hired more people." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "That was 3 years ago. Every time I bring it up, there's a reason why it's not the right time. We're too busy. We're between funding rounds. We need stability in QA." I felt sick. I didn't know. "You never asked." She picked up her coffee thermos, started toward the kitchen. "I need to prep for my meeting." "Wait," I said. "What can I do to fix this?" She turned back, and for the first time I saw real anger in her eyes. You want to fix it? Stop asking me what you can do and figure it out yourself. I'm tired of explaining things to people who should already understand them. She walked away, leaving me standing alone by her desk. I spent the morning in a kind of paralyzed uncertainty, unable to focus on anything. Every task felt trivial compared to the larger problem I'd created, but I had no idea how to actually solve it. Jennifer called a team meeting at 11 a.m. Everyone crammed into our largest conference room, all 18 people who currently made up the company. Jennifer stood at the front, her expression serious. "I want to address what happened Tuesday," she began. "We had a critical platform failure during our investor demo. Some of you know the details, some don't. What matters is this. We had advance warning about the issue, and we failed to act on it appropriately. People shifted uncomfortably. A few glanced my direction. Rebecca Chen identified a critical memory leak 24 hours before our system crashed," Jennifer continued. "She documented it thoroughly, provided a solution, and flagged it as high priority. That warning wasn't taken seriously. The result was 17 minutes of downtime, 200 customer complaints, and a failed investment opportunity that cost us millions in potential funding." The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. "I'm making some changes," Jennifer said. "Effective immediately, Rebecca is being promoted to Senior Platform Engineer with full code ownership and architectural decision-making authority. She'll be leading our infrastructure team and will have final say on all deployment approvals." I felt the words land like stones. "Additionally," Jennifer continued, looking directly at me now, "we're implementing a new protocol for critical bug reports. Any high-priority issue flagged by any team member will require a formal review and sign-off before being deprioritized. No single person gets to unilaterally decide what matters." She was reorganizing the engineering structure around my failure, making sure what I'd done couldn't happen again. The meeting ended with assignments and action items, but I barely heard them. When people started filing out, Jennifer gestured for me to stay. "You're angry," I said once we were alone. "I'm disappointed," she corrected. "Anger is temporary, disappointment sticks around. I talked to Rebecca this morning, apologized." "Good, that's a start." Jennifer sat down, suddenly looking exhausted. "Marcus, you're technically brilliant. You can solve problems I don't even understand, but brilliance without judgment is just expensive ego." "I know." "Do you?" She leaned forward. "Because here's what I saw Tuesday. I saw you receive information that could have prevented a disaster, and you ignored it because it came from someone you didn't respect enough. That's not a technical failure. That's a character failure." The words hit hard, because they were true. "Dana Weatherly called me yesterday," Jennifer continued, "said she decided not to invest. Want to know what changed her mind?" I nodded, even though I already knew. She said watching you dismiss Rebecca reminded her of every mediocre man she'd ever worked with who thought competence was measured by confidence rather than results. She said she'd spent 40 years watching brilliant women be ignored by adequate men, and she wasn't interested in funding another company that operated that way. I had nothing to say to that. No defense, no excuse. "I need you to understand something," Jennifer said quietly. "Rebecca is the best engineer on this team, not the best QA person. The best engineer, period. She's been keeping this platform running through late nights and weekends while the rest of you get credit for features she debugged and optimized. And if we lose her because you made her feel like her work doesn't matter, I will never forgive you." "She's not leaving," I said, though it came out more like a question. "I don't know. She's been updating her LinkedIn profile. I've seen the activity." Jennifer stood up. "You need to figure out what kind of leader you want to be, Marcus. Because right now, you're the kind who makes talented people want to quit." She left me alone in the conference room. I pulled out my phone, opened LinkedIn, searched for Rebecca's profile. Sure enough, there it was, recently updated with new skills, new certifications. Her headline changed from Quality Assurance Engineer to Software Engineer, Platform Architecture, System Optimization. She was getting ready to leave. I spent the afternoon writing code, or trying to. Every few minutes my mind would wander back to the conversation with Jennifer, with Rebecca, with Dana Weatherly. 3 different women, 3 different perspectives, all arriving at the same conclusion. I'd fundamentally failed to see someone right in front of me. Around 4 p.m., I noticed Rebecca at her desk. Her new desk, actually, moved that morning to sit with the engineering team instead of isolated in the QA corner. She was deep in concentration, 3 monitors displaying different parts of the codebase, fingers flying across her keyboard. I watched her work for a few minutes, seeing her differently now, not as the QA person who filed bug reports, but as the engineer who'd been quietly holding our entire platform together while I took credit for stability I hadn't earned. My phone buzzed, a text from my sister in Seattle. "Mum told me about work. You okay?" I typed back, "Been better, learning some uncomfortable things about myself." "Growth hurts," she responded. "That's how you know it's real." That evening I stayed late. Not to work exactly, but because going home to my empty apartment felt impossible. Around 8 p.m. I noticed the lights still on at Rebecca's desk. I walked over, careful not to startle her. She was debugging something, logs scrolling down one screen while she modified code on another. "Hey," I said quietly. She glanced up, surprised. "I thought everyone had gone home." "Almost everyone." I gestured to her screens. "What are you working on?" "The memory profiling system, making it more robust so we can catch these kinds of issues earlier." She turned back to her work, a clear dismissal. "Rebecca, I know my apology this morning wasn't enough. I know saying sorry doesn't fix what I did, or what I've been doing for months." She kept typing, didn't look at me. "I talked to Jennifer today," I continued. "She told me you're thinking about leaving." "That's between me and Jennifer." "You're right, it is." I took a breath. "But I wanted you to know that I get it now, why you'd want to go. And if you do leave, I'll understand, and I won't stand in your way. I'll give you the best reference you've ever had, and I'll make sure everyone knows the real reason you're leaving is because we didn't deserve you." She stopped typing, turned to look at me, really look at me, for the first time since Tuesday. "What do you want, Marcus?" "I want to be better," I said. "I want to learn how to actually lead instead of just managing. I want to figure out how to see people instead of just titles. I stopped, realized I was still making it about me. "I want you to feel valued here, because you should be, because your work matters more than mine does, and I'm only now realizing that." Rebecca was quiet for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "I've spent 3 years proving myself here," she finally said. 3 years of staying late, solving impossible problems, in catching critical issues before they became disasters. And in all that time, no one noticed. Not really. I was just the QA person who worked hard. "I noticed," I said. "I just didn't want to see it." "Why not?" It was the question I'd been avoiding, the one I didn't want to answer honestly. But she deserved honesty, even if it made me look worse. "Because it made me feel less important," I admitted. "Because if you were as good as I was, better maybe, then what made me special? I built my whole identity around being the smart one, the technical expert. Acknowledging that you were brilliant too felt like losing something." "That's pathetic," she said. "Not cruelly, just factually." "Yeah," I agreed. "It is." She turned back to her screens, and I thought the conversation was over. But then she spoke again, softer this time. "I have a daughter," she said. "She's 6. Every night when I put her to bed, she asks me what I did at work. And I tell her I solve problems, I fix things, I make computers work better. She thinks that's amazing." Rebecca's hands stilled on her keyboard. But then I come here, and people treat me like I'm not capable of the things I tell my daughter I do every day. Like being a mother means I can't also be an engineer. Like needing flexible hours makes me less committed. Like not having your pedigree makes me less competent. I felt shame settle deep in my chest. I don't want to leave, Rebecca said. I like the work. I like most of the people. I believe in what we're building, but I can't keep trying to prove myself to people who've already decided I'm not worth seeing. I see you now, I said. Do you? Or do you just feel guilty about screwing up? It was a fair question, and I didn't have a good answer. Maybe there wasn't one yet. Maybe seeing someone, really seeing them, wasn't a moment of realization, but a continuous choice, repeated every day. I don't know, I said honestly, but I'd like the chance to find out. Rebecca didn't respond, just turned back to her code, and after a moment, I walked back to my own desk. But as I passed, I saw the smallest movement. Not quite a nod, not quite an acknowledgement, just a slight shift that might have meant maybe. It wasn't forgiveness. But it wasn't the door slamming shut either. The following Monday, I called a meeting with the engineering team. 6 people showed up. Dev, Priya, 2 contractors we'd brought on for the latest feature build, and Rebecca. I'd asked Jennifer to join too, though she positioned herself in the back corner, clearly there to observe rather than participate. Thanks for coming, I started, suddenly nervous in a way I hadn't anticipated. I wanted to talk about how we're structured, how we make decisions, and how we need to change. Dev shifted in his seat, uncomfortable with the tension he could sense but didn't fully understand. Tuesday's platform crash was my fault, I continued, not because of a coding error or a technical oversight, but because I failed to properly evaluate a critical warning. Rebecca identified a severe issue 24 hours before it crashed our demo, and I dismissed it. Not because her analysis was wrong, but because I didn't respect her expertise the way I should have. Rebecca's expression remained neutral, but I saw something shift in her posture. Going forward, I'm implementing changes to how we operate, I said. First, we're eliminating the artificial distinction between engineering and QA. Rebecca is a senior platform engineer with full architectural authority. Second, all code reviews will be distributed evenly across the team, regardless of who wrote the code. No more seniority-based automatic approvals. Third, any critical bug report from any team member triggers an immediate review meeting before being deprioritized. I looked directly at Rebecca. And fourth, I'm stepping down as lead engineer. The role should go to whoever is most qualified, most consistent, and most trusted. That's Rebecca. The room went silent. Jennifer straightened in the back corner, surprise evident on her face. This wasn't something we'd discussed. I'd decided it sometime over the weekend, between the anxiety and the insomnia and the growing clarity about what actually mattered. Marcus, Jennifer started. It's the right move, I interrupted. Rebecca knows the platform better than anyone. She's been carrying the technical load for months while I focused on features and investor pitches. The team trusts her, customers benefit from her work, and frankly, I think we'll build better things with her making the architectural decisions. What will you do? Priya asked quietly. Stay on as a senior engineer. Keep building, keep contributing, but under Rebecca's direction. I turned to Rebecca. If you'll have me. She was studying me with that same unreadable expression I'd seen too much of lately, calculating whether this was genuine or performative, whether it would last or fade as soon as the guilt wore off. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. The meeting ended without resolution, people drifting back to their desks in uncertain silence. Jennifer caught me on the way out. That was either very smart or very stupid, she said. I haven't decided which yet. "It's what should have happened months ago," I replied. Over the next week, the dynamics in the office shifted in small, almost imperceptible ways. Rebecca started attending the architectural planning meetings I used to run. Her suggestions, always carefully considered, always backed by data, started shaping our roadmap. The contractors began directing their questions to her instead of me. And I let it happen. Actively supported it, actually, deferring to her judgment on infrastructure decisions, backing her calls in code reviews, making it clear through actions rather than words that the hierarchy had changed. It wasn't easy. Every instinct I'd developed over years of being the smart one pushed back against the role adjustment. My ego wanted to reassert authority, to prove I was still valuable, still necessary. But I'd learned, slowly, painfully, that proving myself valuable by diminishing someone else wasn't worth what it cost. On Thursday afternoon, Rebecca asked to meet with me in one of the small conference rooms. My stomach tightened with anticipation and dread. She closed the door, sat down across from me, and was quiet for a moment. "I talked to my daughter about the promotion," she finally said. "Told her I might become the boss of the team that builds the software. You know what she said?" I shook my head. She said, "About time. You're the smartest person I know." Rebecca smiled, but her eyes were serious. "She's 6. She doesn't understand imposter syndrome or workplace dynamics or all the reasons I've been doubting myself. She just knows her mom is good at what she does." "She's right," I said. "Maybe." Rebecca leaned back in her chair. "I'm going to accept the lead engineer role, not because of your apology or your guilt or any of that. I'm accepting it because I've earned it, and because I can do it better than anyone else here." "You can," I agreed. "But I need to know this isn't temporary," she continued. "I need to know that when the next crisis hits, or the next investor meeting, or the next time someone questions my technical judgment, you're not going to revert to treating me like I'm less capable, because I can't go through this again." The vulnerability in her voice hit me hard. This wasn't just about a job title or workplace respect. It was about 3 years of being undervalued, of having her expertise questioned, of proving herself over and over to people who'd already decided she didn't measure up. "I can't promise I'll never screw up again," I said honestly. "But I can promise I'm genuinely trying to change. And if I start backsliding, I want you to call me out on it, publicly, if necessary." "Oh, I will," she said, and there was a hint of humor in her voice for the first time in over a week. We spent the next hour planning the transition, which projects she'd take full ownership of, how we'd reorganize the team structure, what our communication protocols would look like. It was professional and thorough and occasionally awkward, but it felt real in a way our previous interactions never had. As we were wrapping up, Rebecca asked, "Why did you really step down? Was it just guilt?" I thought about it, trying to find the honest answer beneath all my complicated motivations. "Partly," I admitted. "But also because Tuesday was clarifying in a weird way. I realized I'd been so focused on being seen as the expert that I'd stopped actually caring about the work itself. I was building a reputation instead of building a platform, and that's a terrible way to lead." "That's surprisingly self-aware for a Stanford CS grad," she said, and this time the humor was unmistakable. I laughed, surprised by how good it felt. "We're not all completely oblivious, just mostly fair." The following Monday, Jennifer sent out a company-wide email officially announcing Rebecca's promotion and the restructuring of the engineering team. The response was overwhelmingly positive. People congratulated Rebecca. Several engineers mentioned they were excited about the new direction. Dana Weatherly called that afternoon. "I heard about the changes," she said without preamble. "Jennifer sent me your updated org chart. And I'm reconsidering my position, not committing to anything yet, but I'd like to schedule another demo." a real one this time, with Rebecca presenting the technical architecture. "She'll do an excellent job," I said. "I know she will. That's why I'm willing to give you another shot." She paused. "Personal growth is rare in this industry, Marcus. Most people just get better at hiding their biases. If you're genuinely trying to change, that's worth something." We scheduled the demo for 3 weeks out, giving Rebecca time to prepare and the team time to stabilize under the new structure. Those 3 weeks were strange, humbling in some moments, frustrating in others. I had to constantly check my impulses to jump in with solutions, to override decisions I disagreed with, to assert technical authority I no longer had. More than once I found myself starting to speak in meetings before remembering it wasn't my call anymore. But I also saw the platform improve in ways it hadn't under my leadership. Rebecca's architectural decisions were more sustainable, her code reviews more thorough, her planning more realistic. She didn't just fix problems, she prevented them, thinking 3 steps ahead in ways I'd been too rushed or too arrogant to bother with. The demo with Dana Weatherly went flawlessly. Rebecca presented for 45 minutes. Walking through our infrastructure with a clarity and depth that made our platform sound both sophisticated and accessible. She fielded technical questions with confidence, acknowledged limitations honestly, and outlined our roadmap with realistic timelines. I sat in the back, watching her own the room, and felt something I hadn't expected. Pride. Not the proprietary pride of someone claiming credit, but the genuine pride of watching someone excel at something they were meant to do. Dana committed to a Series B investment that afternoon. Not the full amount we'd hoped for initially, but substantial enough to fund our next 18 months of development. After the investors left, Jennifer pulled the team together for an impromptu celebration. Someone ordered pizza. Dev broke out a bottle of cheap champagne he'd been saving for exactly this kind of occasion. Rebecca stood in the center of it all, accepting congratulations and answering questions, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked completely comfortable in her own expertise. Not trying to prove anything, not defending herself, just existing as the brilliant engineer she'd always been. Later, as people were starting to leave, Rebecca found me organizing leftover pizza boxes in the kitchen. "Thank you," she said. I looked up, surprised. "For what?" "For getting out of the way." She leaned against the counter. "I know that wasn't easy for you." "It was necessary," I said. "And honestly, it's been good for me. Turns out I'm a better engineer when I'm not trying to also be the smartest person in the room." "You're still pretty smart," she offered. "Just not as smart as you thought you were." "I'll take it." We stood there for a moment in comfortable silence, the office emptying out around us. "My daughter wants to be a programmer when she grows up," Rebecca said. "She's been pestering me to teach her coding. I was thinking of starting a kids' workshop on weekends, maybe at the library. You any good with teaching?" "I tutored in college," I said. "I could help if you want." "That'd be good." She picked up her bag, heading for the door. "See you tomorrow, Marcus. See you tomorrow." I finished cleaning up the kitchen, turned off the lights, and headed home through Austin's evening traffic. My apartment was still too big and too quiet, but it felt less empty than it had 2 weeks ago. I pulled out my laptop, not to work, but to finally respond to an email I'd been avoiding. It was from a recruiter, offering an interview for a lead engineer position at a larger company with better pay and more prestige. 2 weeks ago, I might have been tempted. The role would have felt like validation, proof that Tuesday's disaster hadn't permanently damaged my career. But now, looking at it, I just felt tired. Tired of chasing titles, tired of proving myself, tired of measuring my worth by how much authority I could claim. I wrote back declining the interview, then opened our company's codebase. There was a feature I'd been meaning to build, something that would improve user experience but wasn't flashy or high priority. The kind of work that mattered without being noticed. I started coding. And for the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about who would get credit or how it would look on my resume or whether it proved I was valuable. I was just building something good. 3 months later, Rebecca and I were reviewing the quarterly metrics when she stopped, staring at one particular data point. "Look at this," she said, turning her monitor toward me. "Platform stability is up 47% since we restructured. Average response time decreased by 230 milliseconds. Customer satisfaction scores are the highest they've ever been." "Your work," I said. "Our work," she corrected. "The memory optimization you built last month was brilliant, and Dev's new caching system and Priya's database refactoring. This is what happens when we actually function as a team." She was right. The platform had never been better, and it wasn't because of any single genius or heroic individual effort. It was because we'd finally learned to see each other clearly, to value contributions regardless of who made them, to build something together instead of competing for credit. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister. "Mum says you're doing better. Proud of you." I texted back, "Learning slowly. Thanks." Rebecca was back to examining the metrics, already planning the next optimization, thinking 3 steps ahead, like she always did. I watched her work for a moment, not with the resentment or insecurity I'd felt before, but with the simple recognition of watching someone excellent at what they do. "Hey, Rebecca," I said. "Yeah?" "About that kids' coding workshop. When do we start?" She smiled. "Saturday at 2 Library downtown. Don't be late." Wouldn't dream of it. I turned back to my own screen, pulling up the feature backlog. There was work to do, problems to solve, systems to improve. The difference now was that I was doing it for the right reasons. Not to prove I was the smartest person in the room, but to build something that actually mattered. Outside the windows, Austin's afternoon sun painted the buildings in amber light. Traffic hummed in the distance. The office was full of the quiet sounds of people working, keyboards clicking, conversations murmuring, the hum of servers keeping our platform running. It wasn't perfect. We still had disagreements, still made mistakes, still struggled with deadlines and difficult technical challenges. Rebecca and I still occasionally clashed over architectural decisions, still had to work through the residual tension of everything that had happened, but we were building something real, not just software, but a way of working together that valued people for what they could actually do rather than what we assumed about them. I'd spent years thinking that success meant being recognized as exceptional, standing out, being the one person everyone depended on. Turns out, real success looked a lot more like getting out of the way and letting other people shine. It wasn't the story I'd imagined for myself, but it was a better one than I deserved, and I was grateful for the chance to be part of it. The platform stayed stable. The code kept improving, the team kept growing, and on Saturday at 2 p.m. I showed up at the library downtown, ready to teach kids how to code, working alongside a woman I'd once dismissed and had since learned was probably the best engineer I'd ever worked with. It wasn't redemption exactly. You don't redeem 3 years of dismissiveness with 3 months of better behavior, but it was a start, and sometimes a start is enough.